I am the Phoenix, the guardian deity of the empire. During the Great Cataclysm, I descended to repay a debt of gratitude, becoming the empress of the Shang dynasty. Yet, after 7 years of marriage, David brought 3,000 little enchantresses into the palace, even ordering me to offer my feathers to help them transform into human form. When I had only one feather left, he wanted to take an enchantress as his royal concubine. On the night of my delivery, I still stayed up all night sewing a wedding gown for the enchantress. But on the day she entered the palace, the enchantress complained that the pink wedding gown was unlucky. She tore it to shreds in public and peeled off my skin to make her own. My cultivation was completely destroyed, and I vomited blood uncontrollably. David laughed and applauded as if he were watching a play. What's so great about a goddess? She's just a bald bird. I don't believe that the empire, which has stretched for thousands of years, will fall just because it lost its guardian deity. I fell into a coma, but he held the enchantress and indulged in debauchery, even hanging the stripped feather garment in the pleasure gardens to admire. When I woke up again, I was heartbroken and knelt before Mother Nature. 7 years have passed, and this disciple has repaid the debt owed to the Shang dynasty. The Shang dynasty's fate is exhausted. I beg you to order General George to send troops to destroy Shang. 1. Mother Nature pondered for a long time, then sighed. Originally, I wouldn't have allowed you to descend to repay a debt of gratitude. The Great Cataclysm is imminent, and Shang was destined to perish. Why go against the will of heaven? But you've been stubborn for so many years. The Shang king married you as his empress, and you were a loving couple. I thought it would have a good ending. How did it come to this? She looked at me with pity. Sarah, have you ever regretted it for a moment? You were the phoenix that the Shang king saved when he was young, yet you couldn't be honest with him about your identity. For so many years, the Shang king has searched for beauties all over the world. Isn't he just looking for the phoenix from back then? My heart stung, and I slowly lowered my head. This disciple does not regret it. It's just time to leave. Before you leave, be honest with him about your identity. Mother Nature ordered someone to summon David. When the palace servant returned, I couldn't help but peek to see if he had come. But all that was thrown at me was a piece of lingerie stained with a fishy smell. His Majesty is feasting with royal concubine Tiffany in the wine cellar and asked the servant to bring the royal concubine's nightgown. His Majesty said that you have the best embroidery skills, and he ordered you to mend it tonight by midnight and send it to the wine cellar. I smelled the enchantress's musky scent, and my stomach churned. Blood rushed to my head, and blood spilled from the corner of my mouth. I looked up and said with a wry smile, "There's no need to let him know." Mother Nature looked pained. You've given so much for the Shang king, and without your wings and cultivation, how long can you live? Forget it, the phoenix will come to pick you up tomorrow. Before she finished speaking, David's personal guard strode in with a sword, looking arrogant. Without even bowing, he carved a lewd poem on the pillar. His Majesty heard that Mother Nature had appeared and ordered me to present a poem. Mother Nature was furious, and her divine power shook the entire Nature Temple, but the personal guard still had a disdainful and lewd smile. His Majesty said that if Mother Nature wants to enter the palace, he can depose the Empress and re-establish her immediately. Silence! I said sharply. The personal guard glanced at me. Royal concubine Tiffany ordered you to serve her by washing her feet. Please prepare yourself quickly. After saying that, he strode away. Mother Nature said coldly, I thought the ancestors of the empire were benevolent, and Shang wouldn't fall. Now it seems that the destruction of Shang is inevitable. Sarah, you will leave tomorrow, and there's no need to reveal your identity as the Phoenix. I nodded obediently. Walking out of the Nature Temple, the cathedral built for me next door was already dilapidated and collapsing. Back then, I descended to marry David as a goddess, and he cherished me in the palm of his hand. The entire capital city sang the love story of the goddess and the Shang king, and David built countless cathedrals for me, with incense burning constantly. When the empire was plagued by constant natural disasters, I used my magic power every day to save people and quell disasters. David stroked my long hair, grateful and gentle, "Sarah, you are the redemption of the Empire, and also my redemption." At that time, even the most tiring and bitter days were sweet. But later, David's temperament changed drastically overnight. He not only feasted all day long, but also took in 3,000 concubines. He emptied the national treasury to build the pleasure gardens. When the wine cellar was completed, he cut my hands and feet and bled into the pool. I weakly begged him to let me go. But he just sneered, "Sarah, why should I let you go? When you forced the phoenix to death, did you ever think of sparing her? You watched me search for her obsessively for so many years, did you ever think of telling me the truth? Everyone knows that the phoenix was the only warmth in my youth. It was you. Who killed her?" I explained again and again that the letter was fake, but he became more and more angry, thinking that I was a habitual liar. David never shared a bed with me again, and the little enchantresses in the harem became more and more numerous. Almost in every corner of the palace, I could see him having sex with women. I was tired and stopped explaining. I wanted to leave, but I found that I was pregnant with his child. The imperial astrologer predicted that this child would be the future son of heaven of the empire. When the child was born, David was overjoyed and immediately made him the junior, granting general amnesty. The ice between us melted, and he came to see me and the junior every day, saying that he had decided to forget the phoenix and start over with me. As the junior grew up day by day, he devoted himself to teaching the junior, and we were a harmonious couple. I thought the storm had passed, and the future would be sunny. But the enchantress entered the palace and brought news of the phoenix. 2. The enchantress Tiffany said that the phoenix was lucky and hadn't been forced to death by me. But she was afraid I would be angry, so she didn't dare to come back. Tiffany brought a handwritten letter from the phoenix. David held it preciously, but I didn't understand. I am clearly the phoenix, so why would there be a fake phoenix? I have been married to David for many years, but he still only wants to believe a strange enchantress, and not his own wife? After reading the letter, David smashed my royal seal in public, pointing at me and saying that he wanted to divorce me. I sat there blankly, covering the junior's ears, feeling cold all over. He hurt me again and again for the sake of the fake phoenix. In despair, the junior cried out in panic. He paused, then tore up the divorce papers. After that day, he made the enchantress his royal concubine Tiffany and never came to see me and the junior again. 1,000 thoughts ended, and I wiped away my tears and smiled at the junior who was facing me. "His Majesty has ordered you to take off your clothes and plead guilty." The maid behind me kicked me to the ground. David, with his clothes half open, held Tiffany and sat in the seat of honor, watching as if he were watching a play. There were even countless guards staring unblinkingly at my torn clothes. The junior pushed the maid away violently, blocking me. "Get out. Who dares to touch my mother?" David's face darkened, and he strode up to him. "You're not even the Shang King yet, and you dare to talk to your father like that? What if I kill her right now?" He kicked the junior away, and the junior crashed into the screen and fainted. Blood spread under his small body. I shouted for the doctor, but everyone looked at David's expression and didn't dare to move. "Why are you pretending to be pitiful? If you hadn't complained to Mother Nature, how could Tiffany have been punished by her? Hurry up and plead guilty." I lost too much blood, and my vision went dark, and I was weak, but I stubbornly refused to kneel. David was a little surprised, and a trace of daze and nostalgia flashed in his eyes. But soon, he became cold and frosty again. "Don't think you can escape punishment by pretending to be the phoenix. Tiffany has suffered such a heavy injury, and even if you pay with your lowly life, it won't be enough." I looked up and smiled mockingly at the small cut on Tiffany's hand that was almost healed. Under my clothes, which wound wasn't several times longer than hers. But David never cared, and even forbade the doctor from bandaging and treating me. With endless disappointment, I turned to leave, but David stopped me. He frowned, staring at the blood-stained clothing on my body. "Why didn't you use your magic to heal yourself?" Let the doctor take a look at you and the junior later. I hugged the junior woodenly. I don't have any magic power. David misunderstood. You're so selfish? You don't want to help Tiffany become an immortal, so you went to Mother Nature to hide your magic power, right? Now you're coming here to play the victim, not even caring about the life and death of your own son. Sarah, you disgust me so much. David thought everything was a matter of course. I should give everything I have to repay the favor and satisfy all his requests. In order to find the phoenix, he looked for many little enchantresses, and I had to expend my cultivation to help them transform, just to find out the whereabouts of the phoenix. I lost my feathers and could no longer fly, and my lifespan was only a few years. But he said, "You are a goddess, how could anything happen to you?" In the past, I cried and argued again and again, only to be met with more unbridled demands and indifference. Aren't you still not dead yet? Sarah, aren't you tired of playing the victim? I raised my head and laughed instead of getting angry. Yes, I am cheap, I am disgusting. David also noticed something was wrong, pushed Tiffany away, stood up and wanted to chase after me, but stopped at the door with a sneer. I almost got tricked by you again. Returning to the chambers, I handed the junior over to the doctor. When I went back in, I only saw an empty bed. Tiffany's maid smiled maliciously at me. Don't worry, Empress. The royal concubine has invited the junior to be a guest in her palace and will definitely send him back at dusk. Following her voice, shrill screams of a child came from the royal concubine's palace. I glared at the maid, my eyes bloodshot. 3. When I staggered to the royal concubine's palace, the junior was screaming, his body charred and tied to a red-hot iron rack. My eyes went dark, and my knees hit the ground, exposing the bones. David. Let him go. Please, Junior will die. He's also your son. David gestured for the maid to help me up. He made a mistake and should be punished. This is just a small warning. If you, as a mother, don't educate him, then I, the king, will have to do it. As the empress, you have to be more dignified. His eyes were cold. As if the one on his deathbed wasn't his own flesh and blood, he even advised me to be broad-minded. Junior is your bloodline, how could he die so easily like a mortal? After the punishment, you can heal him immediately. Tiffany is my royal concubine, so she's his stepmother. He was disrespectful to his stepmother and almost pushed Tiffany into the water, so he should be punished. I was pressed into the seat, my heart was twisted, and I roared with all my strength that Junior was just a mortal, just a child. How could a mortal push down an enchantress with enchantments? But David didn't want to think about it and only wanted to vent his anger for his beloved concubine. The junior was already unrecognizable, charred like a corpse, weakly calling for his father to save him. David was a little moved at this time and was about to signal someone to save the junior, but Tiffany sealed his lips with a kiss. Children always have to suffer, how can they learn if it doesn't hurt? The gold and silver treasures on her body jingled as she became aroused, and the wealth and glory of the entire empire were concentrated on her. The exotic fruits on the table were not Tiffany's favorite, but she just used them to emit a fruity fragrance to cover up the pungent burnt smell and blood. Every item was something I had never received. Even on my wedding day, I only wore a plain silver hairpin. David said that the empire was plagued by frequent natural disasters and the national treasury was empty, so he couldn't be extravagant. I believed him. But it turned out that I just wasn't worthy. It was my wishful thinking that even if I could only hide my identity, even if we met again, David would be able to guess that I was the little phoenix from back then. It was my wishful thinking that I could go against the will of heaven and save the empire and his fate with my own strength. I overestimated David's love. Tears streamed down my cheeks, and I was pressed into the seat, watching Junior gradually lose his breath. We could have left here in just a few hours. But Tiffany killed him. A surge of hatred swept through my heart, and I desperately broke free from my restraints, pulled out my hairpin and pounced on Tiffany. Tiffany's face was scratched by me, and the wound was so deep that the bone was visible. The moment of heartache in David's eyes was replaced by anger. Shrew. He grabbed my wrist and smashed my whole body on the ground. It's just a child who died? Don't think I don't know, you gods can revive the dead and regrow flesh and bones. What are you pretending for? I wanted to tell him, to ask him why. But in grief, my throat seemed to be blocked by the blood and dirt on the ground, and I could only make incoherent roars. David took a few steps forward, wiped away the blood and tears for me, and comforted me softly. Tiffany just wanted to punish him a little and didn't expect it to be like this. It's just that this child was too fragile. Sarah, you should go back to heal first, your own body is more important. I was so angry just now, I apologize to you. The royal concubine made a big mistake, how about demoting her to a consort? I slapped him hard and picked up Junior's small body. For so many years, for this child, I had endured everything to protect the empire. I was just thinking that I couldn't let him become the crown prince of a doomed nation. But now that Junior is dead, what is there to protect in the empire? Then how about demoting her to consort Sue? Looking at David's slightly apologetic face, I laughed sarcastically. What consort Sue? I, the Empress, am asking to step down. Why don't you let her be the Empress? Anyway, the empire is going to perish. 4. I don't know how I walked back to the chambers. I only know that when I woke up again, the wounds on my body had been gently medicated. The wounds on Junior's body were covered with makeup powder, and he was lying quietly next to me. David was haggardly guarding my bedside, holding my hand and comforting me softly. We'll have children in the future. The empire won't perish, and we'll have a new Junior. I pushed him away expressionlessly, and anger appeared on his face. Sarah, how long are you going to be willful? I've already softened up to you like this, what else do you want? Do you want Tiffany to pay for his life? Can't she? I asked back. He was speechless, but Tiffany walked in and took his arm. Your Majesty, look who's here. A woman who looked very similar to me walked in from outside the hall and smiled at him. David, I'm Brittany, the Phoenix. David was stunned. You're back, but I'm going to let you down. Back then, I said I would marry you as my Empress and have a Junior, but now. Tiffany smiled mysteriously and pulled the two of them to sit down in the side hall. My hearing is excellent, and I could clearly hear them discussing. His Majesty needs the child of a goddess but wants to have a child with Brittany. Why not dig out the goddess's core and womb and exchange them for Brittany? I happen to have a secret medicine here. This way, Brittany can ascend on the spot, and His Majesty can also have a Junior. David hesitated, but he couldn't resist Brittany's coquetry and tears. In the end, he was the only one who returned to the chambers with the medicine. I had no magic power, and my strength was not as good as a man's, so I could only turn my head away to avoid him. But he pinched my chin and forced me to swallow it. In the past, when he saw that I was afraid of the bitterness of the medicine, he would specially ask the doctor to research a sweet medicine. Now, I was forced to tears by the bitterness, but he didn't give me an extra look. Before the medicine took effect, he looked at me apologetically and then turned to leave. Immediately afterward, Brittany walked in, watching me writhe in pain with interest. How is it? It doesn't feel good to have your core and womb stripped away, does it? With your identity, everyone is respectful to me, and even your husband will only love me. You don't know, do you? Junior didn't actually die from the rack, but my sister Tiffany ate his soul bit by bit. That child was still calling for his mother before his soul dissipated. As expected of the Phoenix's son, his soul is a great tonic. Sister Tiffany's charm has improved a lot, and now, the Shang King will only be more devoted to us. My whole body was trembling, my reason collapsed, and I burned my soul just to perish with her. But a formation rose up from around the bed, and an invisible restraint split my soul into several pieces. Fortunately, I was prepared, otherwise you would have really used your magic power to kill someone? David's face was frosty. Can gods kill people at will? Sarah, how have you become so vicious and terrible? She killed the junior, she killed Junior. I roared, pain entwining every nerve. The most painful thing was my heart. Sarah, why are you still so calculating about a child? Consort Sue is kind by nature, how could she kill someone? You've really lost your mind. After saying that, he ordered people to close the palace doors tightly and let me reflect for 3 days and 3 nights. In the darkness, in the midst of the excruciating pain, my whole body seemed to be hollowed out, and my body unknowingly turned into a featherless bird. My core and womb had already been exchanged for Brittany. The phoenix transformed into its original form and landed on the eaves, and a gentle force dragged me onto her back. I buried my head in the warm fluff, and tears welled up in my eyes. David reunited with Brittany and was naturally reluctant to part. He didn't go to court and spend a week entangled with her before remembering me. He sent guards to look for me, but they learned that no one in the harem had seen me again. My chambers had already been occupied by Brittany, and he hurried there but was stunned outside the hall. Sarah is dead, and the empire will be our sisters from now on. No one will ever find out that you're impersonating her. The Shang King is handsome, and I've admired him for a long time. Sarah is a goddess and can't openly marry David as the Phoenix goddess. But I don't have to worry, and I can usurp her identity and stay with the Shang King forever. David listened in disbelief, but then he heard an urgent report from the front lines. Your Majesty, it's bad. The front lines are in critical condition. The Phoenix barrier that has protected the Empire for hundreds of years has disappeared, and our army is retreating steadily. General George's army is almost at the capital city. 5. David turned his head stiffly, and the voices inside and outside the hall turned into sharp knives, piercing deeply into his heart, stirring the flesh and bringing dense pain. Brittany was still saying triumphantly, and the shrewdness and meanness in her words were what David hated most. Your Majesty, the front lines are in critical condition. Please issue an order to send reinforcements immediately. The attendant urged again. A surge of anger surged into his heart, and he punched the wall in anger. Tiffany and Brittany appeared when they heard the sound, and they immediately surrounded him with heartache when they saw the wound on his hand. Tiffany bandaged him, but he coldly dodged her. Brittany's eyes sank, but she still acted coquettishly as usual. But David no longer fell for this, grabbing her neck and asking, I'm asking you, who is the Phoenix? Where is Sarah? Brittany was so frightened that her face turned pale, and her hands desperately beat his arm. Tiffany swallowed her saliva and boldly leaned into David's arms. Does your Majesty know everything? We sisters have no ill intentions, we just wanted to help your Majesty see the Phoenix again and fulfill your regret. Since Sarah is unwilling to recognize you, and your Majesty only has disgust for her, why not let someone who truly loves you be the Phoenix and accompany you forever? Disgust? David's whole body stiffened, he let go of his hands, and muttered to himself. Brittany took advantage of the situation and said, Why should your Majesty be angry over such a small matter? Everything Brittany has done is because she loves your Majesty. Is there something wrong with love? Love? David slowly raised his head, his eyes red. His heart seemed to be tied to a weight, sinking into the abyss bit by bit. Brittany breathed a sigh of relief when she saw that he had no reaction. She knew that the Shang King had no affection for Sarah, but he loved their sisters to the bone. Sarah married the Shang King for 7 years and got nothing. But their palace had a constant stream of gold and silver treasures, and the king even spent a lot of money to build Starfall Tower, just to prove his love to heaven. How could such love be shaken by the death of a woman? Thinking of this, Brittany squeezed out a few more tears. The only wrong thing Brittany has done in this life is to fall in love with your Majesty. From then on, I have been deeply in love and have spared no effort. But your Majesty today. Fortunately, your Majesty still has me in your heart. As long as I have your love, I am willing to die. She cried like a pear blossom in the rain, which was David's favorite look in the past. But now, looking at Brittany, he only felt ridiculous. Why did he mistake someone in the past? How could the phoenix be the fake and disgusting person in front of him? She should be like Sarah, always silently standing behind him, gentle and quiet. She should be like Sarah, soft and tenacious, guarding a love for a lifetime. Thinking of this, David pushed Brittany away and walked out. I'm going to find her. Your Majesty. Brittany shouted behind him, you and Sarah have no future. You only love the phoenix in your memory. I'm more like Sarah. Why are you leaving? David didn't look back. Your Majesty. Don't you hate her the most? You said that her aloof and high and mighty appearance as a goddess was annoying, and you were the one who forced her to death. She won't die. She's a goddess. How can a goddess die? David didn't want to believe it. She's just angry with me and ran away from home. As long as Junior comes back to life, she will definitely forgive me. The more he said, the brighter his eyes became, and he almost roared in the end, someone. Dig Junior out. As long as Junior can be resurrected, she will be able to see my repentance. Brittany said, how can a mortal be resurrected after death? David's eyes were terrifyingly red. Immortal? How could Junior be immortal? He thought of his brutal behavior during the day, and his face turned pale. Sarah clearly begged him to let Junior go, saying that Junior was just a mortal. But he seemed to have been taken away by Tiffany, and he only felt that Sarah's crying was annoying. He habitually thought that Sarah was a goddess. How could a goddess die? But he forgot that the feathers that carried Sarah's cultivation had been plucked one by one. On the night when the last feather was plucked, Sarah lost all her magic power and became immortal. And he was holding the newly appointed royal concubine, only feeling that the child's crying and the wailing of childbirth were noisy. 6. Thinking of this, David felt a sharp pain all over his body. It turns out that all the harm she suffered was caused by me. I took advantage of her kindness, took advantage of her inability to refuse me, and hurt her wantonly. He turned and left, his heart filled with Sarah. He remembered Sarah's gentle smile when they were newly married, and Sarah's sadness when the royal concubine entered the palace, standing in front of the palace gate. He walked faster and faster, muttering to himself. In front of the nature temple, he knelt down piously, begging the goddess to have mercy and tell him Sarah's whereabouts. But no matter how he begged, breaking his forehead and bleeding all over the ground, the statue of the goddess still looked at him coldly, as if mocking him. David ordered his attendants to sacrifice living human slaves, almost staining the entire cathedral red with blood. But the goddess still did not appear. David roared, desperately cutting his hands and feet, and blood flowed like a river. Despair and madness filled his brain. Why can't she come back? Won't you even give me a chance to atone? Can't I even say sorry to her? The goddess finally appeared in midair, her expression cold. As things stand, Sarah is heartbroken towards you and the empire. She doesn't want to see you. Even if Sarah isn't the phoenix, she has protected the empire for you for many years. But you are ruthless and unjust, and you have hurt her deeply. The goddess waved her hand, and divorce papers fell into David's hands. Today, you two are divorced, and you don't have to look for her in the future. David held the divorce papers, and the man who had always been strong shed tears. I won't divorce. Now that things have come to this, he remembered Sarah's goodness. She is the phoenix, the guardian deity of the empire. When she was there, no one harassed the borders of the empire, the soldiers were brave, and the people had good harvests every year. It was clear that the great cataclysm was imminent, and natural and man-made disasters were constant. It was clear that he was spending recklessly, but the empire was thriving. Behind all of this was Sarah's contribution. David had never realized this so clearly. Not only could he not live without Sarah, but the empire could not live without Sarah either. He tore up the divorce papers and knocked down the nature temple. What about Mother Nature? You don't have the final say, unless Sarah tells me to my face that she doesn't want me anymore. Otherwise, she would always be my queen. Brittany chased after him. I have enchantments too. I can help the king protect the empire. But he kicked her away fiercely. "Get out." He searched for me frantically, disregarding even General George's army that was attacking Capital City. He forcefully ordered all soldiers to search for my whereabouts throughout the country. For 3 days and 3 nights, there was no news. Everyone told him that Sarah was dead. Having suffered such severe injuries, and without the core, having become immortal, how could she possibly survive? Perhaps she left on her own, afraid of upsetting the king. But David knew she wouldn't die, she just refused to appear. So, he desperately tried to prove his regret with his actions. He disbanded the harem, found sorcerers to refine the cores of all the lesser enchantress into the golden elixir, wanting to offer it to Sarah as compensation. He filled in the wine cellar, burned down the pleasure gardens, and spent his days and a days in Sarah's chambers. "Your Majesty, something terrible has happened. Royal concubine Tiffany and Brittany have stolen the golden elixir and the queen's core and run away." David stood up, an unshakable murderous intent surrounding him. "Bring them back to me, at any cost." 7. The commotion in the mortal realm was too great. Although the Phoenix tried its best to hide it, I still found out. David had gone mad. General George's soldiers were about to attack Capital City, and most of the Empire's soldiers had defected to George's army. Even many ministers had fled with their families. In such dire straits, he made no move. Instead, he drove even more slaves to build Starfall Tower higher and higher. At the top of Starfall Tower, my core, taken from Brittany's body, and that priceless golden elixir were placed, emitting a soft glow day and night. The enchantress Tiffany and Brittany were both captured and locked in Starfall Tower like dogs with specially made demon-trapping chains. Every day, David would personally subject them to a death of 1,000 cuts, using the best medicine to keep them alive, and then executing them again the next day. Their screams echoed throughout Capital City, barely alive for 4 days. On the 4th day, also the 7th day of General George's attack on the Empire, Capital City fell. The Phoenix and I took advantage of the chaos to come to Starfall Tower to retrieve the core. As soon as I landed, I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Sarah, you've finally come back to see me." David, who should have been on the battlefield, stood opposite me, wearing the most gorgeous clothes, smiling. "I knew you wouldn't abandon me." "Sarah, can we start over, can't we?" I looked at him in silence and indifference. The Phoenix rolled its eyes. "What a lunatic. If your ancestors knew you were giving up the Empire's territory like this, they'd be spinning in their graves." David curled his lips. "What would I do with the Empire without Sarah?" He stared at me, a crazed love appearing on his pale face. "Sarah, I know everything. You weren't lying, those 2 enchantresses bewitched me, they impersonated you." He tugged violently on the chains, and Tiffany and Brittany screamed in distress. A satisfied smile appeared on David's face. All the misunderstandings between us were because of their instigation. "But it doesn't matter. We'll have many years, I'll spend the rest of my life compensating you. Sarah, don't leave me." His eyes were filled with affection, and a light of hope lit up little by little. I said expressionlessly, "I won't go back. We have no future together. We were over the moment Mother Nature gave you the divorce papers." The Phoenix interjected, "Sarah has suffered so much because of you, how could she possibly forgive you? David, a mortal like you received the love of a goddess, but you didn't cherish it. Sarah hid her identity as the Phoenix for you, defying the heavens, just to protect you in the great cataclysm. Because of a childhood debt, she agreed to all your unreasonable demands, almost repaying the favor with her life. Now, how can you have the face to ask her to go back?" David looked sad. "I'm sorry to Sarah." He explained cautiously, "I just loved Sarah too much. When I was young, I promised Sarah that I would marry her and love only her in this life. But she disappeared. I didn't know that you were the Phoenix back then. For so many years, I have been struggling and suffering every night. I knew that I had fallen in love with you, but in doing so, I betrayed the Phoenix, betrayed my oath. So, I could only deceive myself, deceive myself that it wasn't love, just hypocrisy. Pretending that I hated you to the core, pretending that I only used you, without sincerity. Because only in this way, would I not betray my oath and be able to wait for you forever. But there was not a trace of emotion in my heart. The phoenix sneered, "What deep affection are you pretending to have?" 8. If you still had Sarah in your heart, how could you not recognize Sarah? If you had even a shred of loyalty to Sarah, how could you have 3,000 concubines in the harem, reveling in pleasure every night? David, you are so cheap, so disgusting. How dare you ask for forgiveness here? Your love, your fidelity are all fake. You are just making excuses for your evil deeds. Those two enchantresses impersonated Sarah, full of flaws, vicious and insidious. You knew that Sarah was definitely not that kind of person, but you still deceived yourself, pretending that you were doing it for the phoenix, forced to hurt Sarah. Why bother pretending? You are just taking advantage of these opportunities to vent the malice in your heart. No. It's not like that. David looked at me in a panic, knelt down, and tugged at the corner of my skirt. Sarah, don't believe her. Believe me, I know I was wrong. I can compensate you with everything I have. You're just angry with me, aren't you? Can our 7 years of affection be erased overnight? I was just bewitched by the enchantments of the enchantress. My heart still loves you. Moreover, we still have Junior. His eyes reddened, and his voice choked. Our Junior is just asleep, he will come back to life. As long as he comes back to life, we can go back to the beginning, back to our happy family of 3. Sarah, can you bear to let Junior lie alone in the ground? I couldn't bear it any longer and said coldly, David, you are not worthy to mention Junior. He was sent to the enchantress by his own father, and tortured to death by the enchantress. If I could do it all over again, I would rather never have given birth to him. At least that way, he wouldn't be calling for his father to save him even when he was dying. All the compensation you are doing now is just self-pity. What can I do to make you understand my sincerity? Sarah, I really regret it, I can give my life for it. Ha 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 ha. I laughed loudly, but the tears fell coldly. All the pain of the past 7 years gathered in my heart, and every injury was deeply remembered. Because of your words, I defied the heavens, gave up my future, and risked being killed by the heavenly court to descend to the mortal world to protect the empire. When you were building the pleasure gardens for your favorite concubine, I was burning 100 years of cultivation to bring rain to the farmland. But you set it on fire when you were happy. David, do you think gods are omnipotent? Do you think it's only right for me to risk my life for you? Because you wanted to make Tiffany happy, I was forcibly skinned and scolded as a bald chicken in front of everyone. Do you know how painful it is to never be able to fly again without feathers? Do you know how disgusting it is to be trampled and humiliated by the enchantress? Do you know how much I hate you in my heart? My core is gone, my child is gone, and if Mother Nature hadn't saved me, I would have lost my life. And yet, you still kneel in front of me and beg for my forgiveness? In your eyes, am I so cheap, so selfless? Give my life for it? How ridiculous! What is your life worth? The always arrogant him lowered his head, exposing his neck, surrendering at my feet. But I don't care anymore. I just want to get my things back and never see you again for the rest of my life. As for whether you live or die, or how you go crazy, it has nothing to do with me. General George's army was fighting in the city, and the shouts shook the sky. I stood on Starfall Tower and looked down. Countless people had already surrendered to General George and no longer resisted. The Empire is dead. I am no longer the guardian goddess of the Empire. From now on, I am just Sarah the Phoenix, not your queen, let alone the former lover you miss so much. 9. I took back the core but did not take that sinful golden elixir. My weakened body was instantly filled with power again. I sat on the phoenix's back, and the phoenix sneered coldly at David's stupidity and hypocrisy, spreading its wings and leaving. The sound of the phoenix's cry lingered in the sky above Starfall Tower. The people cheered and looked up. The phoenix has arrived. The George dynasty will prosper. The tyrannical David must die. Destroying David is the will of heaven. It cannot be stopped. Anyone who resists will be killed without mercy. David's eyes chased after the departing figure of the phoenix until he could no longer see it. The crisscrossing bloody marks divided his face into pieces, and even his miserable smile became ridiculous. When General George ascended to the throne, David set a fire in Starfall Tower. The people of Capital City saw the three figures in the fire. The fire burned for 3 days, and the screams of the two enchantresses continued for 3 days. But the other figure never made a sound. From beginning to end, he was in a kneeling and repentant posture. The great cataclysm ended with the fall of the empire and the establishment of the new George dynasty. According to the will of heaven, all the souls who left in this tribulation could be on the list of gods and serve in the heavenly court in the future. But David refused. The Grim Reapers came to take him into reincarnation, but he shook his head. How can someone like me be worthy of reincarnation? During his days of lingering in the mortal world, he finally heard what the people called him. Tyrant, madman, scumbag. Only then did he truly see that the world he had ruled was already riddled with holes. I owe Sarah a life and the empire an explanation. I never descended to the mortal world again, but the phoenix often descended to send auspicious omens. 100 years have passed, and things have changed. The glorious Starfall Tower and Capital City have become ruins. Only the ballad of regret about the king's demise is still sung by children. David became a wandering ghost, wandering in the ruined site of the royal palace, guarding the tomb of Junior, the crown prince. When the phoenix mentioned it, I pressed down from the clouds to look down, but I could only see the bustling crowd in the mortal world. I could no longer see the former royal palace. The clouds